Hi guys and welcome back. I'm going to be touching up on actual employment by actual immigrants, uh, either legally or illegally. So basically, how if you were to go about it on a legal actual uh, manner, you would have to actually apply for a worker's visa. It'll be most likely it'll be temporary, seasonal. And after that season is actually complete, you would actually return to your home country, and you will see that more at the hospitality, at the hotel actual industry. That's where you tend to see these actual employees actually coming in for a couple of months, a few months out of the year. But that is a legal way to actually come about. Or now on the actual illegal way, it's not so much like before where you can actually work a couple of social security numbers and nobody will actually raise any kind of suspicion. As long as they pay the taxes, as long as they pay the actual whatever you're actually reporting on your tax forms, uh, they would just leave you alone. Uh, before identity theft actually became a big issue uh, for our times. So one of the safest way would be to borrow a relative social security number, and that way nobody will actually report that their identity was stolen. So uh, sharing also a social security with a willing participant. For example, if you're a citizen and you have a social security number, you will actually let somebody else borrow your information, and both of you individuals will work at two different jobs. And nowadays, it's actually more common than before, so you wouldn't raise any kind of suspicion. Say for example, one person is working in one chain of hotels, and the other person is actually working at a different chain of hotels. Well, it's the same industry, so you wouldn't arouse any kind of suspicion. You would just share a name and your rest of your information with that individual, and that tends to be pretty safe too, for the fact that you're both actually agreeing to this actual uh, agreement. So that's another way there too. Or you can purchase your actual documents, but you have a risk of actually the actual owner of that information, the actual individual, to turn you in. Another is to steal, which you don't really see that much anymore for the fact of identity theft. And then the another common one would be um, taking on an identity of a deceased child. And that would be the most common, as to you're actually replacing a child that was actually registered and is no longer around anymore. And a few years ago, there wasn't that much documentation like there is now, and so therefore you can actually be in your 60s and you have an identity from a baby that actually passed away 60 years ago. That would be kind of hard to actually track. So that generation is actually still, it still exists. And remember, I did a video about my friend that actually was given an identification when he was a baby, and he lived through all his life, and he knew that secret, and he told that secret got out. An individual he had problems with turned him into the immigration, and he got deported. So that's typically how you would actually come about to actually get employed, because employers have to send a form out to the actual federal government to verify that that actual number, that actual name is legally able to work in the United States. Also, when I've mentioned this before on one of Shadow's videos about acquiring somebody's information in a violent manner. And I have a good example today. A Mexican national used a stolen identification to live and to work in the US. Okay. And he was charged with false representation of social security number, false claim to be a US citizen, and he got an enhanced charge of aggravated identification theft. The first three that I mentioned are actually they're punishable up to 5 years and a fine of $250,000. That's the max. You won't get that. You will never get that amount because it's a lot. Not unless they know you have money, you know. And and so that actual enhancement, that actual aggravated charge, no matter what kind of actual deal you get for actually committing this crime, you might just get deported. That's it. But still, that aggravated charge, it's an obligated, it's a mandatory 2 years in prison, no parole. Because in 2014, they actually enhanced it to where no matter what, if you are guilty of that, you will be serving 2 years, no matter what, across the board, on top of your actual time that you get for identity theft, false claims, and all that. So that actually comes into play, additionally to your actual your original charges. This actual individual, he actually joined a union as a welder. Now, not only is he paying taxes, he's paying his dues to the actual union, and he's being withdrawn for actual a pension that he will never see, a pension that he can never actually fight or retreat or contest, because in the contract it states that you have to be that individual, or else everything is void, and the union, or actually I don't know who gives the money to tell you the truth, but you do not get it. And if this actually happened for 10 years, that's a good amount of money that you're actually investing. And so somebody actually reported the theft of this information, that it was stolen in the 90s. So it might have took him that long to actually to sell that information, or he could have been working that information since the 90s. So that's a good duration of actual uh, interest, and you're actually, especially if your union actually joining other unions to actually give you a higher uh, matching on your actual 401k, for example. So that money you don't get. All the social security that you actually been putting in, you don't get. So that's a big gamble that you're actually taking, and you are going to do that time, you know. And this, he was found guilty, so he's going to be doing some couple of years, you know, a few years, and that's just that's just another complication when you come over here illegally. That's a risk you're going to take. If you're going to always be looking over your shoulder, or else you're going to be looking that they're going to come and arrest you, and you're at your place of business, at your place of work, at your home. Now you got your family here. It's just, you know, I'm not saying it's not worth it, but the actual the consequences are actually severe, you know. All right, just to give you a little example on actual immigration and actual employment. Okay, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.